Welcome to the Living Faith at Home podcast. This podcast is designed to inspire and encourage you to follow Jesus and live your faith at home. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us at the Living Faith at Home podcast. Pastor Victor here. In today's episode, we talk to Dr. Sara Pasnau about the lessons she's learning during this time as a doctor, wife, mother, and follower of Jesus. Hello, Sara. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for zooming in, talking to folks about their experience during these months and weeks and what God is working in their lives, how they're doing. How about you? How are you doing? What's been going on for you in your world, during these last few months right now?
I'm doing well. I think we're adjusted to the new normal pretty easily. It seems like in the beginning, everything was changing really quickly and it was a little bit hard to tolerate, but now it seems like expecting things to be different just feels pretty natural and comfortable. Everything schedule-wise looks very different, but it's not bad. It's fine.
Yeah. Now, you're talking to me from your office right now.
Yes.
But you also work from home sometime. You told me before that you're working at the respiratory tent. Tell me what that's all about.
So before, my schedule was Tuesday through Friday, I would be in the office, mostly seeing patients. And now what happens in the office has changed quite a bit. We have a respiratory tent, which is just a tent in the parking lot where we can see anybody that has any symptoms of that could be concerning for coronavirus. And we evaluate them and test them. And we're all kind of suited up in gear. So I'm doing that half a day a week. And then phone visits at home 2 days a week, lots of Zoom meetings. And then Friday, I'm seeing people that don't have any sick symptoms in the office, like regular from the building, not from home.
Yeah. And do you feel what's your level of stress and nervousness? You're out in a tent and you could be on the literal front line of someone coming in with this virus. I know you're not normally a stressful person, but this is a global pandemic and, it might be different.
Yeah. I haven't felt stressed or fearful about illness really much at all, which I think is unique and it's a strength that I'm drawing from God on. That hasn't really bothered me. I think, in terms of being in the tent or being around people, because I'm around people in a building with other coworkers and patients that could be asymptomatic carrying coronavirus around, but I have felt not fearful about illness and not fearful about death and not fearful about sharing illness with my family, which has really been a blessing for me. It's allowed me to not add that to the list of things that are weird and new.
Sure.
That need to be coped with and managed. I think if I felt stressed about anything, it's like the planning and meeting and making new processes and that kind of thing. But I also have been able really naturally and kind of automatically to lean on God to bring comfort and peace there. I think for me, it's really easy to get this move fast, don't settle down sort of pace going where you're just tackling a task and a task and a task. And it's hard to, from doing that at work, then settle back down at home and do your normal things like sit and read somebody a book or cook dinner and be peaceful instead of very direct and task oriented. And two things have helped me to kind of get out of that one mode and back into the other mode, which is prayer and praise music. Those have been a really important piece of me staying calm during all of it.
Yeah. So you have the unique perspective, as a doctor, as a Christian, as a mom, as a wife. You have a unique perspective. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I remember even the last in-person service we had in our church, you brought a lot of calm and peace, and just because facts are helpful.
Mhm.
Knowing that, I remember you said, like, look, washing your hands and using hand sanitizer and all those different things. Now, this is before anybody knew the word social distancing. This is before anybody was sitting, 6 feet apart at Walmart, and all the rest. But, I mean, what's a word of wisdom, word of encouragement right now with that unique perspective you have of medicine, faith, common
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, that was a really interesting time for me to think back on. I think it was right before things really took off. And something you reassured me about thinking back on that was, I was thinking, if I had to go back and say that now, I would have said it differently. But at that point, we knew only what we knew, and we had to work with what we had. And then every couple days, things changed, and every 24 hours, things changed for a little while there. So I think uncertainty is a really uncomfortable place for a lot of people to be, myself and people like me, my coworkers, very much included in that. And I think sometimes uncertainty is a helpful way for us to learn to lean on ourselves less, and learn to lean on God more and trust God more, because, the facts that we knew back on that day, or the facts that we know today, or the facts that we know a week from now, literally nobody has gone through this before. And so all of those facts are just like, they're based on real science and real things that we've learned, but we don't necessarily know what tomorrow holds, which sounds like a very kind of Christianese thing to say, but we actually don't know right now.
Right.
So that's been a really good way for me to stretch myself, and I somehow haven't felt too uncomfortable with the uncertainty, which is not typical of me. I think it's really easy to often lean on facts and medical knowledge or science knowledge or whatever your knowledge area is, and not having those has been a really interesting thing.
Yeah. I think things changed a lot really early on as we were like finding things out, and now it's kind of it's kind of flatlined in the sense of like there's not a ton of new stuff, at least for like the average person like me, as far as what I hear on the news and stuff. And it's just a waiting game. And we do waiting differently. Some of us have a really hard time of waiting. Some of us are totally fine. And I feel like I'm seeing that even amongst people I'm talking to. Some people are really content, they've settled in, and then some people are really restless.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a friend, and they're going crazy at their house. They need to go out. They're not seeing anybody. They're not leaving their home. They're just really stressed. And then I've got other people that are making the best of it and making, projects around the house, and the kids are, building massive Lego, adventure worlds and stuff like that. What do you say to somebody that's like stressed, trying to get, wants to just get out? Is having a hard time with this shelter in place stuff. I mean, what are your words for somebody like that that's struggling right now that we're in this just holding period?
Yeah, it's hard because I think at the beginning of this, we all thought like, all right, if we just do this for a couple of months, it'll be over. And now we learn this new piece of information, which is it's not likely to be over. It's likely to be like, we're going to keep it smoldering at this steady state that we can handle. And we still need to live in this new normal way. I think something that we've talked about in my house a lot is, there's guidelines that we could follow perfectly, and we might drive ourselves nuts if we do that. I think we need to follow these guidelines and take them seriously, but there will be instances where for you as an individual or you as your family, you need to make a careful exception. And we've thought about those in my house and been really strategic about where we follow guidelines perfectly, which is most of them. And when occasionally we make an exception for emotional well-being and spiritual well-being and personal well-being. So I think, this is hard. It's not easy for anybody. It's hard for all of us, but we kind of have to find the thing or the way that we can be comforted, and do that and lean on it a lot.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I had grand plans and expectations going into this, like, because there's a great history of Christians in pandemics throughout history being the ones that are going into the city as everyone's leaving, and they're the ones that, cared for the sick and nursed a lot of them back to life, even at risk of their own self because they believe in the resurrection and they're going to be all right and stuff like that. Um, but it's been harder because you have that lack of contact with people.
Yeah.
And really the best thing for everybody to do is stay home. I mean,
Yeah.
like uh, it's not like they all need, if everybody had chicken soup, we'd be fine. Let's bring chicken soup to everybody. No, like the way everybody's gonna be fine is you stay home.
Right. And it's not even
Um,
just about ourselves, like putting our own selves at risk, because sometimes it feels easy to put yourself at risk, but it's
yeah,
about, with this particular illness, it's not about ourselves. It's about, if we all stay at home, it's not just us that is better for it, it's all of us that are better
yeah,
for it. And so that feels a little different in terms of,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. So how do we still care for people? We had to stay home, but there's people out there that are lonely.
yeah,
What can people do to help their neighbors? What can people do to care for somebody that's by themselves? We can't go visit grandma in the nursing home. What do we do? Is there more than we can do? Is there more than that we can do than just pray?
yeah. I mean, as much as many people are sick of meetings that are um, on the computer or
Yeah.
video chat on the phone, I think for people that are home by themselves, seeing a face and reacting in real time as opposed to reading something that was written, is that human interaction is so valuable. So I guess not underestimating how much of a gift it is to have a conversation with a person,
Yeah.
and to not be in a hurry to get off the phone. So maybe, yes, send a text message, but maybe not just a text message. Like maybe clear an hour of your schedule and get on some sort of thing that can let you see someone's face and talk to them uninterrupted and not rushed.
Yeah. Yeah. I read an article in the New York Times last month that talked about like the rise of the phone call
Mhm.
and how people are, calling each other more and how that actually means so much to somebody as
Yeah.
opposed to a text message, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which is sort of like, started taking the lead as far as communication goes before all this, but now phone calls and like listening and hearing the person's voice. I've gotten a couple letters from people. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. They have like gotten me through difficult days just thinking, holding that piece of paper, reading it, that someone,
We
um,
actually ran out of stamps, which is a
no
good
way.
thing.
Yeah.
We're mailing people things, and my
Yeah.
kids are mailing people things, and
Yeah.
to their cousins who are young and not in school and missing their friends and sad, and to my parents and Bill's
Yeah.
parents. And I think it's a good thing to run out of
Yeah.
stamps in a time like this.
Yeah, that's cool. So the other day, Mandy posted on Facebook that her nephew had, it was his birthday and they had planned like a parade and that like only two people came.
Yeah.
And so she like put the word out to, her fellowship, Facebook friends, I got a message from Lee. She sent a group text out and stuff. Can we meet together again at 4:00 and do a rerun of the parade? So you guys were in the car in front of me. Tell me about your experience, your takeaway from that whole thing.
It was awesome. I think when Mandy first sent the message out, I thought about that as a wonderful way to bless a family and a little boy. And so that was a really special experience. And then I thought of it as a way to teach my kids something. Like I said, what do you think about this? How do you think this boy feels? And how can we change that? And what do you think God thinks about you doing this? And so it was a really nice teaching moment for them. And then when we were there, I didn't realize like the overwhelming heart feeling I was going to have being there and just seeing the tons of cars, a lot of from which came from our church, that were there. And there were some adults there who I assume were parents of this child. And they, as well as the child looking ecstatic, the parents had this feeling that I could feel with them
Yeah.
in their faces.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. By the time we got there, someone wrote on Facebook that there were 86 cars.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
Yeah.
86 cars driving by this guy's house and his family. And by the time we got there, the whole family's just crying.
Yeah.
And then I'm crying.
Yeah.
And like, cause it was powerful, like the love and the expression of that. And And again, this, like your point, like bringing the kids there to do that. And so what I said to my kids as we drove away was that kid probably would have preferred a birthday party, but he'll never forget that his whole life.
We said the same thing.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of that opportunity right now where it's like, yeah, you can't, celebrate your anniversary the way you want. You're not going on vacation. You're not, doing this, but there's an opportunity if we don't just sit around moping that we can't have a birthday party to actually.
I think there's a ton of somebody's never going to forget this moments to be had during this time. And I think it makes it really easy to make the next decision. Like if you're in a pickle and you're like, I shouldn't do this because it's going to take too much time or money or energy or risk. And then you just think, which way do I want to remember this incident during this pandemic, which is never going to happen again in our lifetime. Then it's really easy to choose.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last question. What can folks do to bless, to encourage, to help people on those front lines, doctors, nurses aides, receptionists? I mean, is there something that, if you could get the message out of like, hey, make sure folks are doing this, to just encourage and bless people like that?
I think food. People are always thankful for food, but there's not a shortage of food. I think that a lot of healthcare workers feel like they're being called hero on one end of this, and then on the other end of this, they're hearing a lot of negative things on social media, questioning their intentions or questioning if this is even real or not. And that sort of undermines the effort that they put into it and the risk that they're putting themselves in. And that kind of hurts. So I think, things and physical presence are not necessary, but I think, a person or, a group where you can access a group and tell them like, hey, I know what you're doing is real and it's important, and thank them.
Yeah.
That would probably be really well appreciated.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Hey, what you're doing is real and appreciated. Thank you. No doubt. We're so thankful for you, and I'm glad we could talk a little bit today.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Living Faith at Home podcast. If you'd like more information about Living Faith Christian Church, visit us online at livingfaithri.org.